Welcome to Touchline Talk by Soccerspective, where we bring you the inside look behind the global game. I'm your host, Brandon Faust, and today we're diving into one of the most talked about changes in U.S. youth soccer, the shift once again from birth year age group to school year age groupings again. If you like this show, if you like these topics, would you give us a like and subscribe on our Soccerspective YouTube page? The shift once again from birth year age group back to school year academic year groupings. This change might sound like just a calendar tweak, but it has huge implications for clubs, coaches, players, and parents. So let's unpack what it means. Let's look at kind of all sides of this, why it's happening, and how it compares to the rest of the world. Now, U.S. Soccer completed an assessment with about 15,000 responses from members, leagues, clubs, coaches, families, and participants from U.S. Club, USYS, AYSO, state associations, Girls Academy, MLS, USL, NWSL, USSSA, for bringing out some insights to this decision. And some of the key results and learnings from that survey is that 41% prefer birth year, right? So that January 1 to December 31. 47% preferred school year, which would be like August 1st or September 1st if you go September 1st to August 31st. And then 12% of those who prefer birth year, change management concerns were a key reason why they preferred that, right? They didn't want their kids to get caught up in all the transitions once again and changes. Key drivers supporting preferred choice, social benefits, participation, retention, team formation, managing physical advantages. And over 60% of respondents in this 15,000 person survey say that they have some players adversely impacted by being in different school grades as some of their teammates or opponents. 82% of respondents indicated they were not immediately ready for a change in the upcoming season, and many highlighting that they would need to work with their registration tech platform to prepare on the club side. And then the top desired areas of support from U.S. Soccer in this change are change management guidance and then best practices. So the decision was there'd be no change for the 25-26 season, but members in leagues will have reasonable flexibility to choose between birth year or school year for the 26-27 season. But many are saying this is the program, get with it, and we'll see that align. U.S. Soccer says they'll build resources and tools to support members to navigate this transition. Now, I think these data points are important. It is a survey, and it wasn't necessarily overwhelmingly to move to the academic year, but I think enough of it and enough challenges to go back. In a previous data set, right, prior to 2017, they'd used the academic calendar and decided to move back. And this is what higher ups do. They move things around, and then it has a ripple effect. And so the change management side is significant. And I think the most important thing is how do we educate families and how do we educate players and help them to understand? Because if a kid finds out they can't play with their best friends, once again, for the sake of preserving other kids to be able to play with their best friends, it's always hard for that kid. So how do we help be positive about this? How do we help encourage it? We may agree with it, we may not agree with it, but the change is coming, and it's going to impact the landscape of U.S. youth soccer from grassroots to elite, club and elite travel soccer as well. In 2017, U.S. Soccer implemented a sweeping change aligning U.S. youth soccer age groups with the calendar year. So whether you were born on January 1st or December 31st, of say 2010, you played with 2010s. And the goal was to standardize with the international game. A lot of teams in Europe, countries in Europe do it this way. And so on paper, it made sense to many people. Part of the reason, though, for the change from academic year to birth year in 2017 in U.S. youth soccer was to avoid the trap player. Now a trap player can kind of exist in both systems, and how a trap player is defined is it's from the way the academic calendar can be structured. A trap player is a kid whose birth date places them in a different soccer age group than their school classmates when using the academic calendar. So you might have a high school freshman playing with older sophomores and juniors and missing out maybe on team chemistry, social cohesion, and even confidence. However, with the reinstitution of the academic calendar, what's going to happen is you'll have some kids who are now left, say with those certain birth dates later in the year, kind of in limbo land once again. And so I know on both sides of the argument of birth year or academic year, they try to avoid trap players, and there's ways in which both of them end up being apart from their peers. And some kids in this system, as you move to the academic calendar, are left without maybe a team, say their senior year of high school. But what's the rest of the world doing? Let's look at other countries, how they structure their youth age groups. England and Wales do school year age grouping. So they use a school year system, something like September 1st to August 31st, keeping players with their academic peers. And this can help with social development, maybe make some transitions smoother. France does school year age grouping. Sweden does school year age grouping. Argentina does school year age grouping. However, most of Europe does birth year age groupings. And we want to thank our new affiliate partner, Total Football Analysis. Discover in-depth football analysis tactics and scouting reports at Total Football Analysis. Stay ahead with expert insights and data-driven articles. So go to totalfootballanalysis.com, discount code SCS30 to get 30% off any purchase or subscriptions. You can check that referral link as well in the show notes. That's Total Football Analysis, 30% off any purchase or subscription with the discount code SCS30 to get that 30% off. This is in contrast. This was actually part of the reason why U.S. Youth Soccer in 2017 moved to align with what the rest of the world was doing, especially when it relates to, kind of those U.S. youth national teams and things like that. So what's the change? The new policy is after, moving to a birth year calendar in 2017, just a mere few years later, U.S. Youth Soccer is deciding to go back to the academic calendar. After years of feedback, U.S. Soccer announced that starting with the 26-27 season, organizations can choose between birth year and school year groupings. However, U.S. Youth Soccer, U.S. Club Soccer, and AYSO said they will be all switching back to school year age groups from September 1st to August 31st, starting in the fall of 2026. And the reason is to fix the disconnect between soccer and school and to reduce, dropout rates of players in soccer because they might not be with their peers, and to build a more socially aligned, development-focused youth soccer culture. Now, some of this argument gets a little slippery, especially as kids get to high school. Most states have some sort of rule that you can have, say 6 or 7 players from the same high school on a club team. And so some of this breaks down where they're only going to be able to play with some of their, school peers anyways, a limited number of them, but they could have friends within that age group, all those kinds of things that within their same, sophomore, junior year that they play with that go to different schools. So the pros and the cons of this big change, looking at it just for what it is, the change is happening. Like it's already got momentum. It's already been decided. But some of the positives, that a lot of people put forth is of academic calendar realignment is social cohesion. Kids can play, especially younger kids, with their classmates, building stronger team chemistry, better social environment. Young children who are registering for soccer for the first time can play with classmates. Depending on when a kid's birthday is and school years and when people decide to start and things like that, sometimes that can get mixed up. You have both sides of the coin, whether you do it on birth year or academic year. But young kids registering for the first time can play with their classmates, and what's kind of socially appropriate for them if they're starting kindergarten or third grade at the same time they get to go with their peers. And if history proves correct, when the U.S. hosts the 2026 Men's World Cup alongside of Canada and Mexico, there will likely be a large surge of young players registering to play soccer for the first time. Under the current birth year age grouping, many of these players would not be able to play with their friends or their classmates. And so if we want to significantly increase the number of children who play soccer at the very grassroots level in the US, allowing novice players to play with their friends might help the pipeline. That's an argument people have put forward. The desire is that there'd be improved retention, that fewer kids would quit due to confusion or mismatched peer groups, developmental alignment, matching the psychological, emotional, and academic growth stages. And then parental clarity, easier for families to navigate leagues and registration when they just say, what grade are you going into in the fall? It gets easy, or could be easier for families to navigate. Now, this is one where I think there's lots of opinions on what role does this entity play within all of this, but to think that it doesn't play a role, I think would be a bit naive. The desire for improved transitions for the NCAA. In the US, unfortunately, and fortunately, there's some great things to it. Most of the target for parents, players, is to play college soccer, where the rest of the world is to get into, play pro soccer, get into a high-level club when you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, get on a professional pathway. Most of the time for the US, the goal is, can I get an education and can I continue to play soccer? Those are good things. Getting a scholarship, getting an education is good. US is just different. And so there's this idea now where alignment with school year calendar can also be beneficial for players aspiring to play at the NCAA level, playing college at any level, NAIA, junior college, as it helps them navigate the regulations and requirements of college sports and just the kind of age groupings and all those kinds of things together. In alignment with U.S. culture, the school year is the dominant structure for many youth activities in the U.S., making this change more in line with the way youth are typically organized, how society is organized in a lot of ways. Now, when the U.S. went to the birth year in 2017, it was to focus on national team development. And, this is, less than 1% of kids who play, travel soccer or club soccer. The initial shift to birth year was focused on aligning with international standards and potentially benefiting a small percentage of players who might be identified for national teams or to play at the next level professionally. Such a small percentage, but it was a motivation. Now, some of the negatives with this change from birth year to academic, once again, is the transition period. For a couple of years starting now, between now and the fall of 26, clubs may need to dual track, systems, age groups. They may need to change. They're going to need to change existing players to other teams within their club. As kind of the some kids need to move up, some kids need to move down. Some of the negatives of competitive integrity. Some top tier players may get caught in reclassifying rosters, and now they might be with they move up to an age group, or they move down, and maybe that cohesion that they've had previously, the coaches that they've had previously, it kind of changes and shakes that snow globe up a bit. And then inconsistency across organizations. Not all leagues may implement and adopt and hold the same line as others. And I think there's even some discrepancy based on which banner you play under. You might be playing teams in some sort of bigger tournament and you're realizing, wait a minute, they have kids that are older or too young or whatever. And so some of that competition may vary. So what now? What do we need to know? Well, here are 4 things coaches and clubs should be doing right now. Educate parents early. Send out information. Send out a newsletter. Host informational nights. Avoid surprises. Be clear at tryouts, evaluations, because what's going to happen is if you've had a core group of players playing together the last year or 2 or 3 or 4, some of those kids, maybe even up to half of your team, is going to be now either moving down or moving up or whatever needs to be happening there. So be clear at tryouts, be clear at evaluations, get in front of this now so parents know that it's coming and how it impacts their child. The primary people it's going to impact are birth dates from September to December. Those are the kids that are primarily going to be impacted by this whole thing. I know there's some other exceptions. And then prioritize development over winning. Realign your team goals to focus on the long-term growth, right? you may be losing a couple of your top players to a different, age group. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is there's going to have to be flexibility in rostering. I'm sure that there's going to be some players who know that the age group they're in now, the club down the street or the club in the other town has a strong team there. Be flexible, be creative, be understanding, but also help parents understand that our job as directors of coaching, as coaches, is to prioritize the long-term development of these kids. And then prepare for the transition. Map out how your age groups will shift over the next 18 months. John O'Sullivan, the founder of Changing the Game Project, emphasized the importance of aligning youth soccer with children's social environments. He says that telling kids they cannot play with their classmates because they were born in different years seems counterproductive. We are not failing at the international level regarding U.S. soccer because we have an August 1st cutoff date. We are failing because we are not properly developing these players once we get them. So that's, John O'Sullivan's take on this. I do think what's going to be interesting is it seems like the September 1st is the cutoff date. And so that even, for a lot of school systems, at least the state that I live in, sometimes start at the end of July, or school starts at the beginning of August. And so there's some kids who might be in a certain grade that still miss it by a month or two. So I think there's some things there that are interesting. Now, on the other side, Tab Ramos, who's been involved as U.S. Soccer's youth technical director before, coached, played obviously at the national team, advocated for the birth year system because it streamlines player development. It makes the process easier. Over the years, you go through coaching youth soccer and you are constantly finding players and parents confused about what age group they belong in. He goes on to say, it puts our players on the same age playing calendar as much, he says, as the rest of the world, most of the world, so that they will be competing in the right age group. So that's another take. So if you're a coach, a club leader, a parent, start preparing now. Whether you like it or not, change is coming, and it might be for the better. It might not. I think there's going to be a little bit of short-term chaos, and then it'll kind of shake out. Both sides have challenges. Both sides of this equation have positives. But I think, how do we prepare? How do we be supportive? And how do we make sure that the kids are as unaffected? That's what really matters here, is what's going to be best for the kids here. And, some of these decisions, people thought 7-8 years ago, this was the best decision for kids. And now a group of people says it's not the best decision for kids. So how do we take those data points? How do we give feedback? Give feedback to your statewide organization, to your club, so that they can pass that on as well. I want to say thanks for joining me on today's episode of Touchline Talk by Soccerspective, where we bring you interviews, we bring you topics that take a behind-the-scenes look, whether it's on the sideline coaching the game, a director of coaching administrator, or getting involved on the media side, giving you kind of a behind-the-scenes look into the soccer world, to the soccer universe, and people's soccer careers. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.